True story from the sinking of the Titanic. There was a lady, and she was already on the lifeboat. By this time, the ship was at this angle. It was inevitable that it was going to sink, and so those that were there, they were all gathered together, and she all of a sudden remembered that she had forgotten something in her stateroom. So she asked permission, can I go back and get what I need? And the message was, you've got exactly 3 minutes. And after that, we're lowering the lifeboats and we're out of here whether you're on the boat or not. So she ran across the deck. It's already at this terrible angle. She's slipping and she's sliding. There is all this money from the casino, just piles of cash and coin. She ignores all of that. She gets to her stateroom, and she's a very wealthy individual. She reaches up above her bed, and there she picks out what is the most valuable at this time. Not her diamonds, not her jewelry, not her necklace, not her bracelets, but 3 small oranges. 30 minutes before that, you couldn't have given her a crate filled with oranges over even one tiny little diamond. But it's amazing how your perspective changes, especially when death is breathing down your neck. We have a very simple parable this morning. We are at the time of the church year for the next couple of weeks. We're going to be talking about the second coming of Christ. It seems backwards because then we get to Advent and Christmas, and it's the birth of Christ, the first coming. But before that, we need to be prepared for the second coming. So take a look at your notes. The very first thing that Jesus is telling us in very plain terms is be ready. You got to be ready for tomorrow. Let me just very quickly go through your notes in the meaning of each of the parts of the parable. So first of all, we've got 10 virgins, 10 bridesmaids. In those days, weddings were far different than they are today. I had a wedding yesterday, and because I was the officiant, I needed to be there promptly at 3 o'clock. Now, I know the wedding does not start without the preacher, but if you're not there, the wedding coordinator gets very angry. You do not want to make the wedding coordinator or the bride or the bride's mother angry. Don't do that. So you show up on time. It wasn't that way generations ago. In the Middle East, even today, you don't know exactly when the wedding is going to be. It could be in a couple of days, it could be in a week. So you needed to be ready. So the 10 virgins were friends of the bride. The bride is simply the church. All of us who are gathered together. Now, 5 of them are wise. And why? They have oil. Now, all the virgins, they have these torches, not little lamps, but like flaming torches on the end of a stick. Because it's nighttime, it's dark, you need to be able to see the way. The bridegroom is coming, you don't know when, so you have to be ready. So everybody has their torch. The problem is, only 5 of the 10 have extra oil. They bring a flask. And then 5 are foolish, simple reason, they're not ready. They do not have extra oil. They're all there for one reason, and that is to help celebrate the marriage. This is going to be a tremendous feast, a great party. 2 families are going to be united together, and the bridesmaids are there to help celebrate. Now, the bridegroom himself is Christ. He marries the bride, which is the church. So that is going to be the union that everyone is going to celebrate. And it says then that this is the most important day, the second coming of Christ. And think about it. For you may or may not be alive when Christ returns the next time. But all of you will have your day when you die. And so you need to be ready. Now, in the parable, the bridegroom is delayed. It doesn't tell us why. Doesn't matter. This is a parable. It's an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. And so it doesn't tell us why he's delayed, only that he is. And then Some will enter the feast, and some will not. And that's the point. Some will enter, some will not. Those who are ready, those who are wise, they enter the feast, which is heaven itself, and 5 do not. So, what are the lessons that we can learn today? Well, at least several. First of all, some things cannot be borrowed. Now, I know at weddings you're supposed to borrow something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, right? But there are some things that you cannot borrow. You and I cannot live on someone else's oil, someone else's faith. We can encourage others, we can pray for others, but we cannot believe for them. Someone has said that the road of the religious pilgrim is narrow. It's about 2 bodies wide. One is you, one is the Lord. There is nothing more intimate or intense than one's personal faith. That's why we call it a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I don't know how many times in the course of my ministry, in families, there is this belief that it is the wife or the mother's responsibility in bringing the children up in the faith. Many times the husband or the father will tell me, well, Pastor, the religious instruction, I leave that up to my wife. They simply don't understand. Faith is personal. We all need to be encouraging our children. We need to be praying for our children, but ultimately every person believes for themselves. So you and I cannot live on someone else's oil. And secondly, you can't live on the preparations that you made, and you can fill in the blank, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even 6 months ago. We are a church that has members with multiple Bibles in their homes, and yet so many of them never get read. We are an institution that says that we value the community of believers, and yet so many of them are missing every Sunday. Let me ask you just a real simple question. How many of you have a vehicle parked in the parking lot? Anybody? Okay, this is not one of those where your lights are on. You know that you have to maintain your vehicle, right? What would happen to that car or truck or whatever it is, that SUV of yours, if you only changed your oil every 10 years? How's that going to work? I tried that once. It didn't work out too well. What does the manufacturer say? Like every 3,000 to 6,000 miles, somewhere in there. If you don't, bad things happen. And yet, so often with our faith, the most important thing that God has ever given to us, we neglect it. We don't maintain it. The preparations you made in Sunday school and confirmation and in early adulthood no longer will serve you today. So some things cannot be borrowed, and some things cannot be put off either. If you take a look at your notes there, when it comes to earthly decisions in our homes, we get this, we understand this. Some of the people in Houston and in Florida and where the hurricanes have hit did not have flood insurance. Can you imagine? They did not have flood insurance. Usually when hurricanes hit, there's that water problem that goes on. And when it hits, you can't then call up your insurance agent and say, hey, I need flood insurance. Now, I have no idea whether Emmanuel has flood or earthquake insurance, but if an earthquake hits in the next couple of minutes, I'm pretty sure I can't call the Board of Governors and say, would you get on that? Can we have some insurance? Business manager, can you make a quick call? It's too late, isn't it? We understand that parents, how many of you are parents? How many of you have little ones? How many of you still remember when you had little ones? How many are glad that you don't? Okay, yeah, me too. So, when the mess happens, it takes about 10 seconds, right? After the mess has been made, you can't say, oh, I should have put a diaper on that kid. It's a little late. for that. Students, do we have any students? They're all in Sunday school. You remember in college, midterm exams, if you stayed out all night doing things you shouldn't do, probably didn't pass your midterm the next day when you should have been studying, right? You can't put it off. We know that when it comes to earthly things. So why is it that we wait so long to make life's most important, and by that I mean eternal, spiritual, heavenly decisions? You know, people come to me all the time with marriage issues, do some counseling. Those that have not been a part of the church, and so perfect strangers oftentimes, they'll call up, can I get an appointment with the pastor? Sure, we'll see you. And they want to know if I can save their marriage. And almost always it's too late. I had a woman come to me a number of years ago. She had a 30-year-old daughter. And she wanted to know if I could talk to her. And of course I could. She had made a choice that she knew would ruin her life. The mother knew would ruin the daughter's life. Could I talk to her to try and change her mind? And I talked to her. I talked to her for about a half an hour. And I tried to get her to change her mind. And I pointed out all the bad things that were going to happen if she continued on this path. That it wasn't too late. She could still reverse it. But she didn't. Now afterward, the mother said to me, you know, of all people, I thought you could change your mind. I didn't say this, but this is what I thought. You expect me in 30 minutes to do what you couldn't do in 30 years. My friends, if you haven't made the deposit, it's difficult to make the withdrawal. Why do we wait so long when it comes to life's most important decisions? Well, Jesus tells us it's very simple. He says, because we are foolish. We're foolish. It's not because we don't know. It's not because we don't have the desire. The definition of foolish is doing that thing that you know you shouldn't do, or not doing the thing you know you should. So all too often people believe that, you know, the heavenly things, the spiritual things, it can wait. I got time. It can wait. Some things, my friends, cannot and should not be put off. We need to be ready. Then finally this, if not prepared, we can miss great opportunities. Now as we look at the parable, to be sure, there is an element of judgment. I mean, it's not hard to miss, right? The door is shut. 5 of the maidens are called foolish for a reason. Now, everybody fell asleep. All the virgins fell asleep. That's not the point. It could take a while. But 5 were ready. They had oil. 5 were not. And now the door is shut. Those who were prepared, they went in with the bridegroom. The other 5, they were told, go out and buy some oil. Quick, we can't give you any, but go out and buy some. But it was too late and the door was shut. It reminds me of Noah. How many people were on Noah's ark? People, not animals, people. Anybody remember? The Bible tells us there was Noah and his wife, Ham, Shem, Japheth, and each of theirs. There are 8 people. There are a whole lot more who are out there trying to dog paddle. Do you think they wanted in the ark? Oh yeah. It wasn't a lack of desire. They were not prepared. So there is judgment in the parable. Some are getting in, some are not. The door is shut for some. But here's the point, and this is what I want you to remember. This is even more a parable of hope. This is not just God saying some of you don't get in. There's something far larger here. Somebody tell me, how long has it been, approximately, in years, since Jesus was born? Approximately. Anybody? About 2,000 years, so 2,000 minus about 33, you lived on the earth still about 2,000. Why is it taking so long? When Matthew wrote this gospel, he thought Jesus was coming like next week. When Paul wrote to the people in Thessalonica, he thought like Jesus is coming tomorrow, so be ready. It's been 2,000 years. Here's the reason. The bridegroom is delayed to give us more time. To give us more time. If you're ready, and I'm ready, I know I'm ready in here, I'm ready in here, I am ready. I'm not ready to go camping tomorrow, but I am ready if the Lord comes. Because I have been given the gift of faith. I know that my sins are forgiven not because of anything that I have done, but simply because of the cross of Jesus Christ. I'm ready, my family is ready, and I rejoice with that. And I rejoice with every one of you because you're probably ready too, or you wouldn't be here today. But if you're not sure, simply admit it and repent. And ask God to prepare your heart. And read that Bible that you have at home. Come regularly to the worship services. And be encouraged by others. Use the time, because we don't know when. Use the time to prepare yourself, and finally use it to encourage others. Those family members, those friends, those neighbors, those co-workers that may not be ready or even know that they should be. I want to give you a great example. A pillar of this church was about to have surgery a few months back. Went to visit him. He didn't know what the surgery was going to bring. And he said to me, Pastor, if it's all right, if the surgery is good, then that's okay with me. I'm like, well, yeah. But he said, you know what? If it's not all right, if it doesn't go well, that's okay too. He was prepared to live, but he was also prepared to die. But here's the part I don't want you to miss. His family knew that. And not all of them are believers in Jesus Christ. He was one of the wise. One of those who had their torch lit for all to see. And my friends, that is why the bridegroom has been delayed. So if you're not ready, you can get ready. And if you are, you can rejoice and let your light shine. So everyone can go with the bridegroom. May God grant that personally for you, for your family, but also that our church might shine that light for Jesus' sake. Amen.